I'm a white woman and my pronouns are she, her, and I have wavy ginger bob and I'm wearing all black as well. Um, I'm an, I'm Emily. I'm an autistic artist from Leeds with spinal fusion for scoliosis, and the main medium that I work with is photography. I moved to London in 2018 um, to study MA documentary photography at London College of Communication. And I saw this was actually happening in Edinburgh, and I was tempted to um, send something in for that. So I was really happy to see that it was coming to Peckham 24. And hi to anyone who's watching online as well. Um, so Witch's Broom is a multidisciplinary photography project exploring the condition scoliosis, which is a curvature of the spine. And the type I was diagnosed with around age 10 was idiopathic, which means no known cause. And I had a 10-hour operation when I was 13 in 2007 to correct the curvature. And because I was young, I didn't really process it or understand it. So the photography project enabled me to kind of look into the condition's history and to get like a better understanding of my own experience. And on the left is an illustration of a tree and a stake and a rope pulling the curved tree's trunk. And this has become an international symbol for the condition. Witch's Broom, which is the title of the project, is the name given to a woody plant deformity that can affect the structure of trees, causing them to become misshapen. Like the human condition scoliosis, both conditions deviate from the norm. And the photograph on the right has a background of woodland foliage with different shades of green, and the foreground shows a tree with a rope that I tied loosely around it, inspired by the illustration. So I guess I hope that the project can sort of readdress what I found to be a lack of information about the history of the condition, especially visually. And I wanted to trace the development of the treatments over time. And one pattern that emerged was the mechanical and the forceful nature of the treatments. On the left side of this slide shows my pre-operation spine X-ray, and on the left, which looks like an S, and on the right is an X-ray of my post-operation spine, which has become straighter, having been fixed into place with metal rods. And there's a photograph of a tree in the middle showing a curved tree with two colourful light leaks above and below the tree. Well, I guess I didn't really consider myself as disabled until about three or so years ago. And around then I started to explore meditation, which I found very difficult when I began. But I guess it helped me to kind of accept the numbness where I have three scars and the physical restrictions with my flexibility. And also sometimes I get like sharp pains, which increase if I don't stick to certain routines. So like say if I carry my camera too often, I'll start getting more of these pains. And on this is the next slide on the left. Shows a 19th century archival photograph with a female scoliosis patient's back, and their arms are being stretched up, and a male doctor is watching over them. And somebody who had experienced a similar traumatic treatment in the 1960s reached out to me after seeing my work through the Backbone magazine. I guess connecting with this person who liked my work kind of made the project worthwhile and motivated me to carry on with photography. And then on the right shows the sculpture, which I made mechanically with kind of emphasizing the deformity. with the protrusion of a shoulder blade in spruce plywood. And I found that there was a lack of information while researching the project about the condition, and also the period of the 19th century was quite significant, because this is when we have a lot of documentation of medical experiments. A lot of the archival photography I found from this period highlights the colonialist and the male gaze that reflects the use of photography at that time. And for instance, the patient's experience was never recorded. It was only told from the male doctor's perspective, and most of the recorded write-ups only spoke about improvements rather than the suffering that they might have experienced. So I guess working with archives in a critical way made sense for me, because of the challenges of struggling to carry like photography equipment. And I knew I needed to find other approaches to incorporate into my practice. So I started to think a little bit more conceptually and broadly about photography. And archives are becoming increasingly accessible through digitization as well. So Bleeding You is a project I've been working on since 2020. And it's partly informed by being autistic, where I worked with one of my special interests, which became yew trees from 2020 onwards. And I was inspired by the natural phenomenon where these trees can seep a red sap through their bark, looking like the tree is bleeding. This is shown on the photographic image on the right, where a yew tree is growing horizontally across the floor of a woodland. On the left is my description of the project. The series investigates the deconstructive and creative processes after an abuse of power has occurred. The work both literally and metaphorically connects to the growth and decay of a unique tree, the yew tree. Extensions and growth to the side are considered important for reparative relations to develop. And this is just my last slide. And it shows 5 images of different parts of the yew tree using different photographic styles. The green foliage, the yew berries in a bowl, a cyanotype of my hand holding the yew needles, a blurred black and white photograph of me holding a branch of the tree, and lastly, a photograph of beetroot, which I used to make a dye inspired by the tree's sap. So yeah, I guess the previous project, Witch's Broom, is more about like the feeling of constriction, whereas this one, Bleeding You, is more about freedom, ultimately, even though it stemmed from thinking about abuses of power. So thank you very much for listening and for the opportunity to speak. And thanks to my partner, Oliver, for carrying my camera and my tripod, so I wouldn't have been able to do this work without him. And just lastly to say, like, this project, Bleeding You, is dedicated to my friend Gracie Seller Noah, whose funeral it was 3 years ago today. Thank you.
So, hello, my name's Emily June Smith. Description, I've got brownish wavy hair. I'm probably wearing every colour in the rainbow, but say I'm wearing pink and like blue dungaree things. And I've got a pair of glasses that look a little bit like I'm about to watch a 3D movie. I wear all the time. So, hello, yeah, my name's Emily June Smith. I'm a neurodivergent visual artist, so I have ADHD, autism, and dyslexia. The current project I'm creating right now is called Dissonant Past Unmasked. The name potentially is changing, so I wouldn't write that down. But this project's about growing up and living with ADHD and autism. I was lucky enough to be diagnosed quite young, which actually, if you know nowadays about the conditions, quite rare within women because we get underdiagnosed. But my mum and dad fought quite hard for me to get a diagnosis. I got diagnosis back when I was really little. However, that did not mean my life was really super easy now because I got diagnosed, because the condition's under educated, under understood, and there's less representation of it. Back in the day, my life was actually quite a little bit difficult when I was little. So I grew up in the early 2000s. So people's understanding of the condition was lacking quite a lot. So I got told certain things from teachers, like I'd end up in prison. Certain kids would come up to me and tell me that their mum and dad told them not to play with me because I had the conditions. And I was told I wouldn't get a job and things like that, which we all know now is completely not true. But that was kind of what was said to me back in the day. So obviously I grew up thinking and believing all these things. And this is what the project's kind of about, is to raise awareness about the condition, educate about the condition, and have people understand from people with the condition what it's like. Because I think you also get told quite a lot by doctors what the condition entails. So my mum and dad got told that I had like lack of empathy, which we know now is completely not true. I actually have over empathy. Sometimes that can be towards inanimate objects or people and things like that. So this is what the condition's about, to kind of raise that sort of awareness and things like that. Sorry, my phone's just turned off. But this is not me saying this is what the condition is like, because it's not. This is how I experience the condition. There's a spectrum, autism and ADHD. People experience it completely different. They have challenges completely differently. This is just my experience with the condition. To also highlight this and raise education about it, I'm creating a book with a young boy called Murray Bruce, and he writes these really beautiful pieces of writing about how he wishes he could be heard. He's a non-verbal autistic boy, and I think a lot of people believe that if you're non-verbal, they just assume there was nothing happening. And he is one of the smartest people I've ever come across. Really, he writes these really beautiful pieces of writing, and together we're going to collaborate on a book. Basically showing the range of how it can affect everyone so differently. So my experience and his experience, but in a way that we can both best communicate. So my way of best communicating with the world is through visual art, and his best way of communicating with the world is written, which is something you'll find with people with autism, that verbal communication one-on-one can be quite a big struggle. So it's just to highlight and get work out in the best way that all of us can communicate and talk to each other and to educate. So that's the book kind of we're creating, because back in the day as well, when I was little, there was no role models for me to look up to. There was literally nobody in the media that had the condition or was openly saying that they had these sort of conditions. The only thing I looked up to when I was a little kid, or saw when I was a little kid, was this book called A Curious Case of the Dog in the Night. I don't know if anyone's read it. It's a play as well. When I went to see it as a kid, I looked at the boy that was in it, and I was like, but this is not how I experienced the condition at all. This is not how I've lived my life. So then I also went back thinking I couldn't even get my condition right. It didn't make sense to me. I was like, so I thought I was broken in the sense of my own condition. So that's also the reason why I want to create this book, to show how it can vary and how it's different, so that nobody grows up and feels they can't get their condition right, or that they're so different that they don't fit. So that's kind of what the book's about. I can't go too much into the book because it's very early stages. And if anyone knows the process of going for an art council funding right now, so it's quite long trying to get that done. But that's kind of what the book is about. But I can speak a little bit more about the photos I have, which I realise I have not gone through the slide. So that's one of the photos, which are two hands holding, just click it, in some shadows. So these are some of the photos I've taken. So my project actually features all of my family members. The only people that feature in the project are me, my mum and dad and my sister, and I think my mum, nan and grand are in it. This is also to highlight the fact that once you have a kid with these conditions, it also affects the whole family. So when I was experiencing social isolation and things like that, my family also was experiencing that. They were shunned by other parents and they didn't really get spoken to. So I just want to also highlight the effect it actually has on parents. So throughout the slide, there are some facts that I don't actually read, but they're just facts for you to read and learn and things like that. So each of my images as well comes with a piece of writing that I've wrote, because everything within the project is something that I've experienced, I'm still experiencing or have experienced, and to educate. So I think my ideal thing for the project is to have the pieces of writing with the photos, so people can also educate. Because my main goal for this is to educate and hope that nobody else kind of feels alone and confused and broken, which is something that no one is on this planet. That's kind of all I have. If you have any questions, please feel free to reach out, because I know how beneficial it can be to ask questions from somebody living with the condition if you have it, or you have children with the condition. So please email me. I'm happy to answer to any questions. However, it might be a bit of a slow process because I'm struggling to get my ADHD medication at the moment. So if anyone also going through that, you'll know how hard it is to do these sort of things that are online that you can't really do. But I am open to any questions, and my Instagram and things like that is where all my body of work kind of sits. So if you do want to see it, I also have a website, but I haven't put it on there. It's just Emily June Smith. But yeah, that's mine.
Amazing.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Liv. My pronouns are they, them. I have short brown hair, glasses, a white t-shirt and blue jeans. And I'm an experimental photographer working with analog and sustainable photographic processes. This is my project, Under My Skin, where I explore my experience living with hypermobile Ehlers-Danlos syndrome, a chronic and genetic connective tissue disorder that affects my whole body, but this project focuses on the effect it has on my joints and the resulting chronic pain. This is a series of photo sculptures made from photograms and metal chains connecting them. Photograms are a one-to-one scale photographic process that really brings in the notion of personal touch in the process of making them, as I have come into contact with each of the prints during exposure, development, and with the addition of chains. It's a cameraless process, so it removes the camera's perception of my body and takes it under my control. This adds to a layer of vulnerability to the project as well. I've used the chains to highlight specific areas of my body where I experienced the most pain, mainly knees and shoulders. I've used the chains in two different contrasting ways throughout the project to restrict movement within the prints, but also to hold the prints together like a complicated jigsaw puzzle. The chains are metal, which is a key theme throughout the work, as it's a strong material, but the chains themselves are small, thin and fragile, which links to my joint instability. I wanted the chains to mimic my contrasting symptoms that I have that vary day to day. This series is part of an ongoing investigation in my project, where I explore the physicality of photography and its relationship to sculpture. I really enjoy having an expanded view of photography and working with other materials like chains and other materials in sculpture to further the work that I make. Throughout the project, I also ventured into sculpture, and I made a chicken wire sculpture that I molded around my knee and created photograms as well. This one's double exposed. I wanted to bring in my physical reality into the project as well. Throughout the project, I also used metal stamps to deboss words into some prints. This one says trapped right in the joint of the knee, where the word itself is trapped within the knee joint, but also embedded into the work itself in the piece. This is similar to how my condition is in my DNA. I can't remove it. And yeah, I'm excited to continue this project further. I've got prints with me today that I can show anyone, but I want to expand into installation and bookbinding and text, but also keeping the project personal and small. Yeah. Thank you, Liv.
Today is from my project, You Didn't Get It From Me. This work is based on my experience of being diagnosed with type 1 diabetes in December 2020 during the second COVID lockdown. For anyone unfamiliar, in short, type 1 diabetes is an autoimmune condition. The body attacks beta cells in the pancreas, which are responsible for producing insulin. Without insulin, you can't regulate your blood sugar. So I have to do that manually, all day, every day, through a constant balance of injections, food, exercise, and glucose monitoring. It's a 24/7 job with no breaks. I was 30 years old when I was diagnosed. Type 1 is more commonly diagnosed in children or teenagers, so it was a big surprise to both myself and the healthcare team treating me. You're told you have this life-changing condition, and then you're left to your own devices to figure out how to manage it. That moment was incredibly disorientating for me. It fundamentally shifted not only my identity and how I saw myself, but it shattered my confidence even in doing the most simple of things, like going for a walk down the road. I'll be honest, I've struggled with calling myself disabled. Imposter syndrome creeps in, especially seeing as the condition is invisible. On the outside, I appear fine, but the inside reality is relentless. There's no part of the day where I can just switch off. Even sleep is interrupted by alarms, calculations, or corrections. I had to check my blood sugar and have something to eat even before I recorded this. People react strangely when I use the word disability. There's discomfort, disbelief, or sometimes silence. These reactions are what I've tried to confront through making work about my condition. I tried to visualize how an invisible condition might look, also how it feels through my eyes. Living with type 1 also means being at high risk for anxiety, depression, and burnout, all things I've experienced since my diagnosis. Photography gave me a way to process the physical and emotional weight of the diagnosis, as well as the daily realities. My photographic work gave form to something that's largely invisible. When I was diagnosed, I was coming to the end of my MA in photography at Falmouth University, and coincidentally looking for a subject for my final major project. The project wasn't just about documentation, it was also about survival and adjusting to my new life. The title of the project, You Didn't Get It From Me, refers to something my grandma said to my dad when he was diagnosed with type 1 when I was a child. I grew up around the disease. I watched my dad test his blood, I watched him inject insulin, but I never truly understood the weight until it became my own reality. The work is about family, generational echoes, and about inherited resilience. It's about the strange comfort of shared experience, even when that experience is negative. Finally, this is the portrait of the man who diagnosed me and saved my life. Professor David Russell Jones. It was shortlisted for the Portrait of Britain Prize in 2023. You can see more of my work on my Instagram page. My handle is bets_Tom. Please feel free to reach out, and thank you for your time.
Next up, we have Zara Carpenter. Zara can't be with us today, so I'm going to read out a little piece on her behalf. I do have visual impairment, so forgive me again. Okay. Pain is one of my earliest memories. Lying in bed as a child, rubbing my legs as they spasmed. It has remained a constant companion, evolving over time into something that now engulfs most of my body. Despite its intensity, my pain is often questioned or dismissed because I appear in quotation. I live with Ehlers-Danlos syndrome, fibromyalgia, and obsessive compulsive disorder, conditions that are often invisible but profoundly impact my daily life. I have never been fully able to express what my pain feels like in words. Over the past 7 years, I have been developing distress, an ongoing body of work that seeks to visualize the experience of physical and psychological pain. These prints have been left outside, buried, bleached, covered with growths of rust and salt crystal, coated in effervescent painkillers, some even eaten by snails. They are fragile and worn. Touch them and they could fall apart. This series attempts to visualize the invisible, the complex, fluctuating, individual nature of pain. I use different experimental techniques to attack portraits of myself, specifically targeting the parts of the body and mind causing discomfort. This seemingly violent act is part of the process of letting go, a cathartic release, exercising the pain, and into work that I create, using only a small selection of source images, working into them, and documenting, printing out, and reworking them over and over again. Each time renders different results, with new layers emerging, bodies begin to transform and break down, finally disappearing. You can see Zara's full body of work from Distress and a really beautiful video showing the process at zaracarpenter.com/distress. Thank you, Zara. Okay, everybody, we have Alexander Thomas.
Hello. Firstly, I'm so unprepared listening to like you guys. You've got like brilliant slides and everything like that. I just wing it. It's a terrible approach, really. So description of me is I'm a white male. I'm wearing a cap today. I don't usually wear a cap. I'm black jacket, navy blue trim.
Yeah, it's either
Navy blue. A murky green jumper. I just want to say to start with, I'm always happy to shake people's hands, but I'm actually at the moment I'm in between chemotherapy treatments, so I won't shake people's hands, but I really want to. So thank you. So I'm Alexander Thomas. Please call me Alex. I live with epilepsy. I'm also partially sighted. Another one of my friends, who is a photographer, he's also partially sighted, and he always says it's a great irony being a photographer who can't see very well. So you would have picked a career maybe more acceptable to you, but you've got to do the things that you're passionate about. So on the screen here, this is Arjun Nala. He's a Sri Lankan singer-songwriter based out of Brighton, which is where I live currently. I've lived all over the place, and I've lived here in London, and I desperately miss London. The reason I picked Arjun here is I did this shoot recently, and Arjun approached me and said, I was going to do, this is what you always want to hear as a photographer. He said, I was going to do this shoot with another photographer, but who's better than you? But I wanted to work with you because he knew about my approach to photography, which is kind of just to wing it. I used to be a commercial photographer, and that's very, very strategic. It's very planned. It's very methodical. And now my approach is to just kind of meet people and shoot how you feel. And hearing what you guys do, your process is so detailed and beautiful and lovely and great. And I feel like a bit of a fool actually, based on the work you guys make. My style is just to kind of meet people on the day, and then we kind of make it up. Sometimes there's a brief, sometimes there's not. It really depends on how we feel. This day, I just took loads of black and white film out with me, and we got this, and that's kind of my approach. And I love now approaching photography from the perspective of just going for it, rather than, I was saying to Liv, just trying to be as experimental as possible. Sometimes very classic, sometimes very simple. I'll tell you from the start, there's absolutely no way I would have been allowed to have shown you this because it's not out yet. So my friend is going to be very upset with me later. This is the story behind this. This young lady on the screen here is Maisie O'Shea. She is a England para footballer, and she's currently get my words right, she is currently the deaf sports personality of the year. And the story behind this shoot was I had been approached to profile some England para footballers, and that didn't work out as much of photography often doesn't. But I was so adamant that I still wanted to profile these brilliant football players. And I pitched this work around to many editors and many magazines, many publications. And one editor, and this is stuck in my head, I've never forgotten it, and I don't think I ever will. Someone said to me, no one's interested in para sports stories. And I spent about a week thinking about how to reply to that, or if I should reply to it at all. And in the end, I said, I'm interested. And that, bottom line, that's enough. If the photographer is interested in the work, it's worthwhile. And also the other side of that is, of course, people are interested in hearing about disability stories of sports athletes and para sports. So really, really, really long story short, this is actually going to be on the front cover of a magazine that is being published all across the world. And that is justification for being passionate about the work you want to make. And for me, proving that actually people do care, because magazines don't just put anybody on the front cover. They don't tell the stories that they do unless they're really passionate about it themselves and they want to tell those stories. So thank you to these guys for that. Last year, I was commissioned by the England Football Association to go and shoot the FA Disability Cup, which is a series of para teams who play in the finals over a weekend at St George's Park in Burton. And this is, I was saying to Liv just a moment ago, I made the decision this weekend to just shoot entirely on film, which is nuts. You should be a lot more planned than that. But I didn't take any digital camera with me. I was like, I'm only going to shoot this purely on film, which is a massive risk. But that is how I love approaching my work. And really, they're great. They let me do whatever I wanted, and they just kind of let me have free reign over the weekend. And they've asked me back, so they've clearly not learned their lesson. You may recognize this gentleman. This is Gareth Barlow. He's on Sky News in the mornings. This was a shoot for Sky News. This is how underprepared I am. I'm not even sure what the next slide is. This is Kieran Green. There we go. I did know that. Kieran Green, this guy is incredible. He plays so many different para sports. I was just fascinated by his story and by his drive and by his passion. And I wanted to meet him, and he trains down in Hove. And we did a series of images and shots and stories together. And the thing I kind of want to just end on is that for me, I never want to make myself a story. I really want to elevate the story of other disabled people whenever I can, but also when I'm working with people like Gareth Barlow, I'm also putting myself in positions which maybe were more difficult to obtain without there being a disability edge to it. So when I'm working with people like Kieran, they remind me that the disability side of what I do is what I love doing most. And I really want to spend the rest of my career elevating, focusing just on para athletes and para sports and meeting other disabled people. So this is fantastic what Louise and the rest of the guys here have done. So I'll round it up there. I hope that was okay. Thank you very much.
Hello, my name is Letizia Lopreiato, and thank you so much for the opportunity to share my lived experience in regard to disability and photography at Peckham 24 for this year's edition, and to Louise from Steve's Edinburgh for inviting me to this amazing event. Unfortunately, I cannot be there physically to present, but I'm really glad that this opportunity to share my experience, even remotely, was given to me. So here we go. I'm a visual poetess and a transmedia artist, and I recently relocated to London. Mine within photography is a journey that has only been made possible by embracing my authentic self to was uncovering the roots of fear and its true relationship with what love meant to me as an emotion, an energy in motion and constant evolution throughout our life. Process of discovery I would have never embarked on without unveiling layer after layer of experience, and in particular for visual poetry storytelling, my vocation in regard to photography as an art form within visual poetry storytelling in its own right. And most recently, at my fourth eye operation at Unipace Eye Hospital in London, which I mentioned because for me it's been an incredible experience, where I had the luck and the joy to have been truly taken care of over the past 4 years. And after 6 years, without being able to look into somebody's eyes, as my capacity for face and colors recognition was fading more and more and being impaired more and more by my recognition, my brain, but above all, my body, as I now am aware of, starting filling the gaps with other stories for me to look at, other stories for me to feel with other senses, stories made of what the presence of somebody else's energy made me feel and meant for my body, and that guided me to slowly but surely, over the course of the last 3 years of shooting to conclude my latest creative documentary, to a story that has become my form of self-guided meditation in many ways, to the now monocyte lens of my body and of my visual creative process. I've been feeling reality through my entire body throughout this time, by a form of total embodied connection, rather than just through my eyes and mind, so-called mind mnemonic processes. This journey is now a two-sided stories of care and unconditional love, received and given between my mom and myself, which for me, starting during an artist talk I had with Claire, founder of Photo Fringe 2022, while I was presenting this project that I here share a cameo video of, an inclusive photography experience, and my From the Front project. And well, while I was living in Brighton in 2022, and which continued throughout my new project research studies on how IFS, acronym for Internal Family System, which is a psychoanalytical model, the neuroscience of emotions regulation, and the neuropsychology of embodied cognition can set someone free from the triggers and the impact on the body, the nervous system, and but also really on our on the daily life of CPTSD, which is again an acronym for what is called complex PTSD in adulthood. This is a story that I'm now ready to start sharing to help others living through challenging times in their lives to build resilience in their feet and above all in their hands, to learn and relearn how to truly hold each other's hand by keeping on moving forward, or as my mom would say in Italian, poco a poco, step by step. I end on a thank you note to Louise McLachlan from Steve's Edinburgh and to the Peckham 24 organizers for this amazing opportunity again. And if I may, I would like to share part of this video just for a cameo reading of how I use large calligraphy and inclusive technologies for making my art installations inclusive, although based on a photo storytelling, photo poetry and visual storytelling model. From the front, garment, top of bed of necklace, horses decorated by teardrops of rain, softened lights of a sunset at dawn penetrate the dense walls of his eyes, clenched, tightly sealed in invisible padlocks. No keys for these doors, like windows frames of a time suspended. Passages to another world, the realm of the mind, rest for the soul, awaken. Thank you so much, everybody, and have an amazing day. I'm actually going to stream at the event, so really happy that this is an opportunity for people with disability who cannot join on site for this incredible opportunity. Bye. Thank you.
So I found a blog post by the Zara Archives, which is by Chris Scales, the archive officer, and it was a blog post called Len Wright, a disabled person's story told through photography. And I wanted to share it just as a piece of photography history within the local community. From what I understand, there's not much known about Len's life. I think these were sort of just left within the community centre and within the archives. Chris has written a piece about it, which I'll read out, and hopefully we can enjoy going through this piece of disability history from a disabled photographer's perspective, particularly within the time in which these photographs were taken. Disability was documented genuinely in a pretty horrendous way, notoriously. Film photography was one in which it was often very expensive tool which allowed really the most wealthy to be the ones that were in control as to how people, communities, life history was documented. And that often meant that we had people without lived experience, people within a position of power coming into community, coming in to seek out difference and documenting it in a way which was often not an accurate representation of those people's lives. For disabled folk, this is generally quite a strong narrative, and hopefully within the accessibility of digital photography, within the fact that we all have the camera within our phones, there's a way in which we can have a reclamation of control of our bodies and how we are documented and how we're seen, which I hope you have seen through our brilliant presenters today. But a little insight from a disabled person's perspective within the time before. I'm going to read it out now from Chris Scales. Thank you, Chris, for sending this through. Chris says, please note this presentation contains outdated terminology that may be offensive. Terms describing disability have changed significantly and continue to evolve. The pictures you can see now are from 2 photo albums and collections of the Southwark archives that belong to Len. Len was born in Peckham in 1938 and lived with his family in the Lindley estate for most of his life. He developed epilepsy in his 20s, and his father Harold also had a physical disability from birth. Both Len and his brother Arthur worked as street cleaners for Camberwell Council, and in later life, Len was a regular user of the Aylesbury Day Centre from its opening in 1975, taking part in many activities, including the wood workshop. In 1990, after his father died, Len moved into sheltered housing. He died in 2011 and was buried in the Camberwell Cemetery. The photographs in the albums show Len's family and upbringing, but also include outings with local disability groups in the 1960s and 1950s. His father Harold seems to have been a member of the group, and Len, Arthur, and their mother Harper are also seen taking part. The group are seen going on boat trips to Seaside, Eastbourne, visiting the Peckham Salt Model Village, and a canal boat outing in London. One set of images shows the group trailing in village carriages, later known as Inva cars, on an airfield. These motorised 3-wheel vehicles were built after World War II under a government programme that provided transportation to wounded veterans and disabled citizens. Various services that support the group are also seen in these pictures, including staff from St John's Ambulance, London County Council Ambulance Service, and the British Waterway. The group itself is unidentified, but it may be the Peckham Cripple Guild of Friendship, a weekly social group for physically disabled adults run by the Shaftesbury Society, now Livability. In the 1960s, the charity maintained residential schools for children, maintaining residential centres, holiday centres for the physically disabled. The Peckham group met weekly in the 1950s at Braithwaite Hall on Flowery Road, and in the 1960s, the new Caroline Gardens Day Centre at Zelland. They would meet in the evening for activities, including table games and entertainment. Transport from rooms were provided by the charity. In the 1970s, the group was renamed as Peckham Guild of Friendship for Disabled People, based at the newly opened Aylesbury Day Centre, where Lens were regular. We know very little about Len's life and the activities of these organisations that did such crucial work in the mid-20th century supporting disabled people. But Len and his family's photographs provide a real insight into the mutually supportive community of which they played a part. To see more of Len's photos, anyone can get in touch with the Southwark archives to visit and look through the albums, reference 2018/45 in the archive search room on Borough High Street. Just drop them an email at archives@southwark.gov.uk. I just wanted to finish with Len's archive because the theme, as we say, of coming together for Peckham 24, I hope it highlights historically how we as a community have come together and how much of an essential coping mechanism and ability to survive that allows us with. So please stay within the space after we've done questions, meet each other, keep in touch. Thank you for coming together, everybody. Thank you for all of the speakers.